It was supposed to be just another glamorous evening, an exclusive party with the city's elite, luxurious outfits, and the kind of glitzy atmosphere that made you feel like you were part of a different world. Everyone was mingling, laughing, and exchanging pleasantries, but little did anyone know the night was about to take a turn, and at the center of it all was a woman, standing in the middle of the room, unnoticed by many, yet caught in a moment that would change her life forever. Her name was Lin Ro-King, a woman of grace, intelligence, and quiet strength. But tonight, she wasn't the confident woman everyone thought she was. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty as she looked around the room, feeling like an outsider. Despite being the wife of one of the wealthiest men in the country, her husband, Mr. Sheng, stood beside her, but there was something off about the way he acted. He wasn't treating her like his wife. And that was just the beginning of the evening's unfolding drama. The air was thick with tension, and Lin Ro-King couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Everyone around them seemed to notice the disconnection between her and her husband, but no one dared to say anything. It wasn't until she overheard a whispered conversation that things started to unravel. Her husband, Mr. Sheng, a man who commanded respect in every room he entered, had been distancing himself from her for weeks now. But tonight, he went one step further. As the crowd gathered around, laughing and sharing stories, a bold, arrogant voice cut through the noise. "You can't be serious," the man said, his voice dripping with condescension. "That's your wife?" Lin Ro-King froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The words felt like a slap to her face. A jerk, one of Mr. Sheng's business partners, had just publicly humiliated her, dismissing her presence as though she were nothing more than a mere accessory. "She doesn't look like your wife," the man sneered, as if her very existence could be questioned so casually. The room fell silent, all eyes turned to her, and her face flushed with embarrassment. But what cut deeper than the comment itself was the lack of reaction from the man she called her husband. Mr. Sheng stood there, silent, avoiding her gaze as if he wasn't even aware of the hurt she was feeling. It was a moment that felt like a betrayal. And then, in the midst of this awkward silence, someone else stepped forward. A figure that Lin Ro-King hadn't noticed before. A CEO from a rival company, Fu Xingzhou, who had been quietly observing. The exchange from across the room, his sharp eyes, full of quiet intensity, shifted from the man who had made the cruel comment to the woman standing alone in the center of it all. There was something different about him, a level of understanding, of empathy, that immediately set him apart from the others. Fu Xingzhou didn't hesitate. Without a second thought, he walked across the room and stood between Lin Ro-King and her husband, cutting through the crowd with the presence of someone who commanded respect without needing to raise their voice. His eyes locked with the jerk's, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. "She is his wife," Fu Xingzhou said, his voice calm but firm, each word weighted with authority. "And if you dare question that again, I will make sure your business dealings come to a screeching halt." The tension in the air was palpable. The man who had disrespected Lin Ro-King stepped back, suddenly finding himself at a loss for words, intimidated by Fu Xingzhou's unwavering gaze. But it wasn't just the jerk who had been put in his place. Lin Ro-King stood there, stunned, as she realized that for the first time that evening, someone had defended her. Someone had seen her, truly seen her, not just as a wife or an accessory, but as a person worthy of respect. And as the crowd began to murmur among themselves, Fu Xingzhou turned to Lin Ro-King with a kind, almost apologetic smile. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. It wasn't a question anyone had asked her tonight. She nodded, too shocked to say anything. She wasn't used to receiving help, especially not from someone like Fu Xingzhou. But there was something about the way he stood there, unwavering, that made her feel like she wasn't alone in the world. That maybe, just maybe, there was hope for something more than the life she had been enduring silently. The night continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Lin Roqing couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. She had been living in the shadow of her husband's neglect for far too long, but now, someone had stepped in to show her that she deserved better. The question lingered in her mind. Who was Fu Xingzhou really? And why had he come to her rescue, knowing so little about her? As the evening drew to a close, and the guests began to disperse, Lin Roqing found herself standing near the exit, unsure of what to do next. Her husband, Mr. Sheng, had hardly said a word to her after Fu Xingzhou had intervened. He was distant, cold as always, and Lin Roqing felt more alone than ever. But then, out of nowhere, Fu Xingzhou appeared again, his calm demeanor as steady as ever. "I think we need to talk," he said, his voice low, carrying a sense of finality. The tension between them was undeniable. Was it just a fleeting moment of kindness, or had something more meaningful sparked between them? Lin Roqing couldn't help but wonder if the unexpected twist of fate at the party would lead to something she never saw coming. As she looked into Fu Xingzhou's eyes, she felt a flicker of hope, something that had long been absent in her life. But as she followed him into the quiet of the night, one question remained. Was this the beginning of something new? Or would the shadows of the past continue to haunt her? And with that, the story of Lin Roqing's new chapter was just beginning. The following days after the party passed by in a blur for Lin Roqing, it felt like the world had tilted slightly on its axis, and she wasn't quite sure where she stood anymore. The sting of that moment, the public humiliation, the cold indifference from her husband, Mr. Sheng, still lingered. But it wasn't just that. It was the strange feeling that Fu Xingzhou had left her with. That quiet, reassuring presence, so different from anything she had known, haunted her thoughts. But it wasn't just his intervention at the party that made her uneasy. It was the way he had looked at her, like he saw her for who she really was, not just as an extension of her husband's wealth and status. Lin Roqing had always been the dutiful wife. She played her role perfectly, attending events, smiling in all the right places, supporting Mr. Sheng in public, while swallowing her own feelings of neglect in private. But beneath her poised exterior, there was a woman who felt invisible, caught in a marriage that wasn't a partnership, but a facade. She couldn't even remember the last time her husband had truly looked at her, had truly seen her as more than just a trophy wife. Mr. Sheng's coldness wasn't something new. Over the years, their relationship had grown distant, with his focus on business and power, eclipsing anything remotely resembling affection. Lin Roqing had accepted it, or at least convinced herself that she could live with it. She told herself that this was the price she paid for living in a world of wealth and privilege. But deep down, she knew she couldn't keep pretending forever. The question that kept nagging at her, did she deserve more than this? The answer came to her in the most unexpected way. Fu Xingzhou. She knew he was different the moment he had stepped in at the party. It wasn't just about how he defended her. It was the way he looked at her, like he was truly interested in who she was. Beyond the surface, that rare moment of clarity felt like a breath of fresh air, a glimpse into a world where she could be valued for herself. But it wasn't that simple. Fu Xingzhou was a CEO with his own agenda, and their worlds were far too different, yet there was an undeniable connection that kept pulling her toward him. After that night, Fu Xingzhou had made a few subtle attempts to stay in touch. A message here and there, asking if she was okay, checking in on her, but nothing overtly personal. just enough to let her know that he was still there if she needed someone to talk to. Meanwhile, at home, things were worsening. Mr. Sheng's cold behavior became even more pronounced. He'd been distant for weeks, but now it felt almost like a deliberate effort to shut her out. It wasn't just his lack of attention. It was the way he would make decisions about their future, their finances, their life, without ever consulting her. She was a stranger in her own marriage. And the more he ignored her, the more she began to resent him. One afternoon, Lin Roking found herself standing in the middle of their lavish penthouse, staring at the piles of documents scattered across the marble table: business contracts, property investments, bank statements. Her husband's world, a world she had never fully understood. All the decisions he made for their life, yet she had no say in them. She sighed, feeling trapped. It was then that Fu Xingzhou's words echoed in her mind. If you dare question that again, I'll make sure your business dealings come to a screeching halt. For the first time, the thought of defying Mr. Sheng crossed her mind. Fu Xingzhou had made it clear that he wouldn't let anyone walk over her. But could she trust him? Could she trust someone she barely knew to protect her from the life she had built, or, more accurately, the life that had been built for her? Lin Ruoqing's conflict grew with every passing day. She wanted to break free from the suffocating grip of her marriage. But the thought of facing the unknown terrified her. What would happen if she chose to leave? Could she survive without the comfort and security that Mr. Sheng provided? But deep down, she knew she couldn't keep living this lie. It was during one of these sleepless nights that she received a call from Fu Xingzhou. His voice was calm, as always, but there was something different in it this time. I know you're struggling, he said, but I don't want you to feel like you have to suffer alone. His words were like a lifeline, and for a moment, Lin Ruoqing wondered if she could reach out, if she could lean on him for support. She needed someone, anyone, to help her break free from the suffocating control of her husband. But how much could she trust Fu Xingzhou? Was he just being kind, or was there something more? The next day, everything came to a head. Mr. Sheng, as usual, had left early for work, leaving Lin Ruoqing alone in the empty apartment. The silence was oppressive. She wandered through the rooms, each corner a reminder of a life that was no longer hers to control. It was then that she decided. Enough was enough. She picked up her phone, her fingers trembling slightly, and typed a message to Fu Xingzhou. I need to talk. Almost immediately, he replied. I'll be there in an hour. The next hour passed in a blur. Lin Ruoqing paced nervously, her heart pounding as she wondered what this conversation would lead to. Fu Xingzhou arrived promptly, as if he'd been waiting for her to take this step. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. What happened? He asked, his voice low, serious. For the first time, Lin Ruoqing allowed herself to open up completely. She told him everything. The loneliness, the neglect, the betrayal she felt. She spoke of the man she had once married, the man who now seemed like a stranger. And as she spoke, Fu Xingzhou listened, his expression never wavering, never judging. When she finished, he didn't immediately respond. Instead, he simply nodded. You don't have to live like this, he said softly. You deserve more than this. It was those words, those simple words, that struck a chord deep within her. They were the words she had been longing to hear for so long. And for the first time in years, Lin Ruoqing allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a different life. But even as hope began to bloom within her, she knew the path ahead would not be easy. Mr. Sheng would not let her go without a fight. The business empire they had built together, the power, the money, it was all at stake. Fu Xingzhou could offer her an escape, but would she have the courage to take it? The tension was building to a breaking point. The next steps Lin Ruoqing's took would determine everything. Could she leave the life she had known for a chance at true happiness? Or would she be forced to stay in the gilded cage her husband had created for her? The answers were just within reach, but the storm was only beginning. Lin Ruoqing stood at the crossroads of her life. The conversation with Fu Xingzhou had cracked open the door to possibilities she never dared imagine. But stepping through, it would mean leaving behind everything she had known. The walls of her life, the mansion, the wealth, the status, felt like a distant memory now. A world that no longer held any comfort. The woman who had once believed that a perfect marriage was the price for luxury had now realized how empty that belief had been. But leaving wasn't going to be easy. She had no illusions about the struggle ahead. Her marriage with Mr. Sheng wasn't just a contract between two people. It was a contract with a world of its own, filled with promises, threats, and expectations. She wasn't just walking away from a man. She was walking away from years of her life, from everything that made her secure. It wasn't just about the loss of material things. It was about stepping into the unknown, where there were no guarantees, as if the universe was testing her resolve. The moment she decided to take action, everything seemed to come crashing down at once. That evening, when she had just made the decision to confront Mr. Sheng, he returned home earlier than usual. The tension in the air was palpable as he walked into their penthouse, looking unusually tense. Without saying a word, he threw a folder onto the table. Documents about a business merger that Lin Ruoqing knew would directly affect her family's wealth. Mr. Sheng had been keeping secrets again, making moves without consulting her, and, this time, it seemed like it was about to affect her future too. "What are you planning to do with all of this?" Lin Ruoqing asked, her voice steady, despite the panic rising within her. Mr. Sheng looked at her with cold eyes, the mask of indifference firmly in place. "What I always do, handle business." Her heart raced. It wasn't just business now. It was her life that was at stake. She had to make her choice, and she had to make it now. Lin Ruoqing grabbed the folder and tossed it onto the floor in frustration. "I'm done with this. I'm done with you." For a moment, the room was silent. Mr. Sheng looked at her like she had lost her mind. His voice was laced with disdain. "You can't just walk away, Ruoqing. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I'm your husband. Your entire life is tied to me. I know exactly what I'm getting into, and I'm done living like this." Her voice shook, but her resolve was clear. She had said it. She was free. She had chosen herself, and that was all that mattered. Before Mr. Sheng could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Fu Xingzhou. Lin Ruoqing had already messaged him, knowing that tonight would be the night when everything changed. Fu Xingzhou's presence was like a beacon, a calm amidst the storm. When he stepped inside, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. His eyes locked with Lin Ruoqing's, full of understanding and something else. A quiet promise. "Are you ready?" Fu Xingzhou asked softly. Lin Ruoqing nodded. There was no going back. Not now. As she walked toward the door, leaving behind the mansion, the life, and the man who had once been her husband, she felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. But more than that, she felt hope. It was the first time in years that she truly felt alive. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The world around her spun in chaotic motion as she made the decision to walk away from her marriage. Fu Xingzhou stood by her, offering not just support, but the quiet assurance that she was making the right choice. They worked together to navigate the legal battles that came with her decision, with Fu Xingzhou's resources proving invaluable. It wasn't easy. Mr. Sheng fought hard to maintain control over what he considered his his wealth, his influence, his wife. But it became clear that Lin Roking wasn't someone to be controlled any longer. And in the end, Fu Xingzhou didn't just save her from her toxic marriage. He helped her rebuild, not just her life, but her sense of self. She began to see herself, not as the wife of someone powerful, but as a woman in her own right, capable of making decisions and forging her path. The tension that had once filled every corner of their interactions slowly turned into something deeper, something undeniable. They weren't just allies in this fight, they were something more. Lin Ruoqing hadn't expected to find love again, but in Fu Xingzhou's quiet, unwavering support, she realized that perhaps love wasn't just about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It was about trust, respect, and the quiet reassurance that someone saw you for who you truly were. As time passed, Lin Roking and Fu Xingzhou grew closer, and their relationship blossomed into something real, something built on mutual understanding and a shared desire for happiness. She finally felt free, not just from her marriage, but from the expectations that had held her captive for so long. But there was one final twist. One day, while handling some of her own business ventures, Lin Roking received a call from Mr. Sheng. His tone was calm, almost too calm. "You think you've won, don't you?" he asked. "You think I'll let you go without a fight? You'll regret this." Lin Roking felt no fear. In that moment, she knew that no matter what came next, she had already won. She had found her strength, her independence, and most importantly, she had found someone who valued her for who she was. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. With a quiet smile, she hung up the phone. She had made her choice, and she was at peace with it. The story of Lin Roking wasn't just one of escaping a toxic marriage. It was the story of rediscovering herself, finding love in unexpected places, and learning that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight for our own happiness. And as for Fu Xingzhou, he wasn't just the man who saved her. He was the man who made her believe that love could be as simple as it was transformative. Together, they stepped into a future full of possibility, where they could build something real, something lasting. And that was only the beginning of their story.